Welcome to episode 62 of Behind the Catch Fence. I'm your host, David Hoffman. Well, cars are on track in Indianapolis, and we could not be any happier. Obviously, it's still a little early, but it'll be interesting to see who starts to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. Now, before we get into episode 62, have you checked out our latest episode with Mario Andretti? Have you? It should be on your must-watch list if you haven't already, because we talk all about his Indy 500 win from 1969. You do not want to miss it. So go check that out. Anyway, on today's show, we got 2014 Indy 500 winner Ryan Hunter-Reay joining us. On the show, we talk about the 10-year anniversary of his win in the greatest spectacle in racing, how the race has shaped his career, and how he's feeling heading into the race with Ryan Reinbold Racing. So, with that, sit back, relax, grab your favorite snack, maybe some donut holes because they're just darn good, and go enjoy this episode with Ryan Hunter-Reay. When I say it's your 16th Indy 500, what kind of comes to mind for you when you hear that?
Just how fast it's gone by. You kind of cherish every opportunity you get at the speedway, and you never know when it's going to be your time, when it's going to be a struggle. It's always a bit of a mystery on kind of what you're going to be up against when you head into it. So I remember a lot of tough times, a lot of really great times, missed opportunities, some of the ones that got away, and then every year you go back, you have that renewed kind of. You have that kind of renewed confidence slash optimism that it could be, this could be another year for you.
I always find it interesting, drivers their first times at Indy, and yours was 2008, and just how was that for you? First time going to Indianapolis, just maybe what kind of stood out to you, whether it was just the atmosphere, just the pressure that you kind of feel, what kind of stuck out to you with that?
Yeah, I mean, having come up like through Champ Car, through kart, and then all of a sudden, switching over to the IRL and then going to Indy, it was just a much greater, bigger, larger stage than I had ever seen anything happen in racing. So that was the biggest thing is, and just the immense amount of pressure just kind of came with it. It's not like there was any one thing that created that pressure. It was just the enormity of the atmosphere and the importance of it, the history of it, and all that stuff. So I remember that first year just kind of like eyes wide open, drinking from a fire hose, trying to take everything in. And it was definitely, it was a great learning experience. And, having won Rookie of the Year at Indy that year, that was a special time in my career and kind of, set my trajectory off in IndyCar as it is today.
Now you're coming into your second year with Ryan Reinbold here at the 500. Just what's kind of impressed you? Obviously, they'd run just only run Indy every year. Just what's kind of impressed you with their approach and how they go about things inside their shop and just to get ready for one race per year.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that's impressed me is the advantages to just focusing on Indy. A lot of guys will come out of this, they just went to Long Beach, right? Back to back to Barber. Then they head over. Some teams did some testing. Now they're going to go race the GP this weekend. Some guys they'll head back to the track. Some teams, some crews will head back to the track on Monday to set up for our first day on track on Tuesday, and they're already tired. They're already kind of like, man, this is a grind. So it's great to not only have the crew fresh, but the cars are they've been rubbed on. Paid attention to in detail for just Indy for many, many months. So it's a really great group of people, very talented. A lot of guys that were with a lot of the big teams that just don't want to do the constant grind of the IndyCar schedule. They want to be home. They're family men that want to be home with their families, and I get that for sure. And that whole thing, kind of that whole combination. Really lends itself to, I think, a really strong program. We had a really good car last year. Unfortunately, in the race, we broke a front wing adjuster on the first stop when I needed a whole bunch of front wings. So we had to get creative with how we were going to do that. So we had to just keep trimming rear down, force off the car, which isn't necessarily the way you want to do it. But we were still able to, we were leading late. Unfortunately, we missed we missed the pit, come in, get fuel before that last yellow. We were kind of running around exposed there for a bit, so we had to take a splash and finish 11th.
And you've been with bigger teams like an Andretti before, where it's 4 car, 5 car teams before. Just what do you feel are just some of this is the key differences? I know you kind of touched on a little bit, just for yourself, just and kind of that which kind of helps you maybe prepare differently, or maybe like adjust to just solely focusing on one event.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. I mean, there are advantages to having a larger team. You have more resources, you have more people, more input, more data channels that you can go over, more references from other drivers that you can work with. Hey, this driver tried this change that we would have never thought would work, and it worked. So let's try that. Oh, wow, that works. And you might not get that with with less cars in a team, but there's also the upside with a smaller team like Dry and Rainbow, where you have a more focused, streamlined, effect on what you're doing. It seems like the job list of what you want to go through pairing with your teammate, which in this case is Connor Daly in the 24. We can really efficiently and quickly go through a big list of things. And hey, did you like that? Yeah, I did. No, I didn't like that. And we can kind of make the best of that list for the next day. And it just feels a bit more streamlined. You kind of get it all lost in the noise a little bit in a big team. And you tend to, especially when like at Andretti, when there's 6 cars there, you tend to kind of gravitate towards working with only one teammate anyway, because there are so many pieces of information coming in that you can get kind of lost in the woods with all that. So I enjoy, working with one teammate like that, and working with a smaller operation where, if I really want something in the car, the ship turns a little quicker. Let's say that, it moves quicker. They're ready to respond to any little, requests that I might have that I might want from the car. And it's, there's advantages either way, but I'm really enjoying this format.
You mentioned with being teammates with Connor Daly, obviously, 2 Americans and kind of the all-American team type of thing. This for you, how has that been? Just to, I believe this is the first time you've worked. Actually, it's maybe not. You worked with him, once when he was at Andretti a couple years ago. But how has that been for you guys to be able to gel and to just bounce ideas off of? And obviously, you'll learn more, when you're on track more this month.
Yeah, I mean, we worked together at Andretti, like you said, and that was one of those scenarios, where he was the added car on, and there's just a whole lot of cars, a whole lot of people in the garage to take it all in. But it's great to be working with Connor. He obviously knows his way around the speedway very well, very talented at Indy, and he knows how to get the best out of the car at Indy. So I look forward to working with him there. Unfortunately, at the open test, he was able to get some laps in. We had some electrical issues. We had a sensor problem with the throttle, and the only laps I had were, I think it was like 3 laps, and it was at like 60 to 70% throttle. I knew right away something was wrong. Came in, we had to take the whole front of the car apart. It was not as simple as just swapping out a tiny little sensor. So unfortunately, we got back out there, fired the car, getting ready to run, rolled down pit lane, and it started raining, and it rained the rest of the test. So we really didn't get a chance to bounce things back and forth. But, the chemistry there and everything within the team is great.
Yeah, obviously this year's a pretty big year for you. 10 years since your win in 2014, which is pretty crazy to say. This it was probably one of the more entertaining races between you and Elio. And what I always come back to, what always kind of gets brought up every year is that move. Go low on him. And going into turn 3, that last second move. And obviously it wasn't for the win technically because he got you back, and you got him back again to solidify it. But
True.
just what possesses someone to go so late into a quarter that close to the grass and maybe potentially losing it?
Yeah, I was talking to Scott Dixon, Will Power, and Danny Sullivan about this yesterday, actually, and it was just this was kind of the start, because when we came from the Dallara IR03 car and into the DW12 or IR12 as it's called now, the racing changed entirely at Indy. The draft was massive. You couldn't just break away. With the older car, you could take off, and if you had a better car, you'd drive away from the guys behind. With this car, you couldn't. And this year in 2014 that you're referencing, it was the first year that really these crazy lines started to happen, where we were coming out low out of the corner and then trying to, dodge the draft, and then, making late moves like that was pretty wild. And Elio and I both, we talked about it after, we were both just doing things that we didn't think the cars were, mainly even capable of. We were just kind of going for it, going for an Indy 500 win. Me going for my first, him going for, his fourth at the time, and we were just it was going for broke. I mean, it was really that's what it was, and it was pretty wild. I was like when I entered the corner on that pass that you referenced, it was from the bottom, and once I got in there, I was like, oh boy, I don't. This is either a really good decision or a really bad decision. I'm going to find out here in less than about a second and a half, and that's what you have to do though. You got to put it on the line. The biggest risks usually end up with the biggest rewards. So that's what it was, and it was an awesome finish to fight it like that. And you're right, that was not the pass for the win, but it was. I think it threw the whole thing off balance a little bit for them, for Penske and for Elio. So they knew that I could attack from the top and from the bottom late. So it was hard to cover the track from there on, I think. So it was awesome finish. And I don't think my rear end touched the seat those last 7 laps. Honestly, I was like standing up in the car. So it was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, it certainly was. You kind of hear how Indy changes, when you win at Indy, it kind of changes your life in a way. For you, I guess maybe not so much off the track, but maybe like how did Indy winning at Indy in 2014, kind of change your life in that way?
I mean, I think it's a career long goal achieved, right? And your name will always be synonymous with Indy 500 winner. Whenever you're introduced at events, it comes with it. It's I don't want to say it's like earning a doctorate where they preface your name with doctor, but it almost does come that way. It is. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's opened a lot of doors for me in my life, and business opportunities, things like that. It's the gift that keeps on giving, as I kind of have referred to it in the past, especially the year after. I mean, it was just endless amount of opportunities, media exposure, just running through the middle of it. And it was a lot of fun. But yeah, since then you're once you're an Indy 500 winner, you're always an Indy 500 winner. And as a kid growing up, you want to do two things, especially on the road racing side. You want to win the Indy 500, you want to win the IndyCar championship. So oftentimes the Indy 500 does trump the championship itself.
Obviously, winning the race, it's a whirlwind. You got celebration, media. You mentioned everything else. And through all of that time for you, what kind of do you still reference or look back on that you really, hold close to you, just and will always look back on with that win?
I think just being on the front straight right after the race, holding the American flag, looking up at the fans, and all of it just coming down on me at that point, like realizing how big this is and what just happened. And you in your mind, you're like, okay, take all this in. You're trying to take snapshots of what's going on, and being there with my family and my son riding at the time, who's super young, obviously won't remember it unfortunately, but just taking all those moments in, going around. I can see, I could see it like it was yesterday, going around the racetrack in the pace car, waving to the fans. And then from there, going to New York, doing David Letterman, all these things that are just once in a lifetime opportunities. Even if you win it the second time, there's nothing like that first time experience where everything just kind of hits you, on that cool down lap, even as you come into pit lane rolling down. And you have, I had, Tony Kanaan giving me 5. I had Bobby Rahal, who I had driven for, who gave me a big break in my career, giving me 5 coming down. It's just like, it's almost like this collage of events goes through your head of what it took to get there. And that's kind of what is, I think, the most special about it, is when you get to reflect on that in the moment.
And final couple questions. Indy is always kind of synonymous for having all these traditions, all these different things that people will always know the Indy 500 by. Just for you, whether it's on track, off track, what would you say is your favorite tradition when you head out to Indy for the month of May?
Really, first thing that comes to mind is family. I mean, just being there with the family, the kids absolutely love it. Just all the traditions of it. The parade. It's not something that I necessarily enjoy myself, that I like, oh, I can't wait for the parade, but it's more of that family atmosphere, and you're waving to all the fans who took the time to sit out there in the heat. The race day, the traditions of race day and everything that goes into that, with driver intros, hearing Back Home Again in Indiana, once I get my helmet on, sitting in the car, and that moment of the first time I any driver at that time in the day would be by themselves. And you hear it back home again in Indiana. That's a special point in any driver's head, I think, when it goes into the 500. You know that this thing's about to get going, and it's a lot of nerves. But yeah, I couldn't say one thing really sticks out to me. It's the entirety of the traditions and the history and the event. Picking for qualifying, picking the order for qualifying. You can end up on either end of that. You can really hate it or love it, but it's one of those traditions that's special that you do with family and teammates and the team there. And it's just it's the whole thing. That's what makes it beautiful.
And you mentioned it is the whole month. You're able to be with family. You're able to go in all these different places. And yeah, maybe you might not like the parade or something, but it's just the fact that all these families and yet your family next to you. So it's an unforgettable experience. I can imagine being a driver and all that, and finally having that little moment of just, all right, now we got to lock in. Would you say that's probably the one time that maybe the nerves go away a little bit, or the nerves kind of get heightened when you're in the car finally by yourself?
The nerves are heightened. I think once the engine fires, then you're just you're locked in. You're in competition mode, and your brain kind of switches. But prior to that, you hear all the fans, you hear the songs going, you hear all the the theatrics of what's going on around you. But yeah, once the engine fires, then it's just like there's a flip of a switch, and you're just the fans. All that stuff might as well not even be there. It's like you're locked in.
And final question. Yeah, obviously you kind of talked about it. You didn't get too much time at the open test to really get much of a read on stuff. But going into the month, what do you feel is feasible for you guys? And, where do you feel you guys are at, like baseline wise of just having a car?
That's the hard thing with Indy, man. I mean, I'm telling you, even when I was with Andretti for 12 years, half the time I'd be struggling fighting a car that I couldn't get out of the top 20. And then half the time I was up front in a fast car. You just never know year to year. There's so many components that go together on these cars, right? You have, especially with how the front wing interacts with the underwing, how it interacts with that rear wing, and all front wings, underwings, and rear wings are different. And you have all that body work and how all these things interact and the rolling resistance from the uprights and the gearbox and all this stuff. It all goes together, and you're looking for fractions of a mile an hour when you're doing 230 something miles an hour. You could make the slightest of changes and find 3 or 4 tenths of a mile an hour. So you really never know. You really don't know until you get around to like Thursday-ish or Wednesday, Thursday on where you are. But every year is an absolute reset. I mean, I would imagine Ganassi seems to be onto something pretty good. They have been. I'd imagine they're going to come back and be quick. But for us, I can't really say yet. I don't know. I think, I think we have a good shot at it. Last year we did. We were good. We focused on our race car to make sure that the race car was good in race trim. We didn't necessarily focus on qualifying as much. And we qualified, I don't know, I think I don't know where we qualified, maybe 16th, somewhere in there. But we didn't focus that much on qualifying. If we did, we would have been quite a bit quicker than that. So it's anybody's guess. I hope we're, kind of in that same area, if not better than we were last year, because I know the teams are working hard on it. And there's reasons why we should be further up, but it all depends on what the others have done. And I think Chevy has come back and done a good job. So I'm hoping, that's always another one that you're waiting on. You get in the car and you get in these big packs and you want to see how it is your engine manufacturer compared to the other. In this case, if Chevy's maybe gained a little bit more over Honda. So these are all things I can't wait to find out. Trust me, I'm counting down the hours till I can actually figure it out.
Well, we'll be coming here soon, and hopefully you guys are able to roll off and have a good month of May. Thanks for tuning or not tuning in. Thanks for joining the show, and good luck this whole month of May, and hopefully maybe you'll be hoisting a second board order here soon.
I appreciate it. No, thanks for having me on, and thanks for everybody, for tuning in, checking it out. Look forward to seeing it, Indy.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 62 with Ryan Hunter-Reay. No matter how many years later it is, Hunter-Reay's move on Helio Castroneves there in the closing laps will be played on repeat forever. I mean, just the sheer determination to make that move happen on the inside, make it stick, is just insane. Both Ryan and Connor Daly will certainly be drivers to watch for as the Indy 500 gets closer here. Those Dreyer and Reinbold cars are just always fast when they hit the speedway, and I wouldn't expect it to be any different. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more motorsports content. Trust me, we got a lot planned ahead, that's for sure. I'm not going to tell you guys anything yet, but you'll see if you subscribe. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure to follow the show on X and Instagram at Behind Catch for more content. Go enjoy the Indy 500 qualifying this weekend, NASCAR All-Star Race, NHRA, whatever it is. Go have some fun. I'll catch you guys later.